I used to believe silence was a choice, until I realized it was just loneliness with better manners. There's a certain kind of quiet that clings to the walls of my cabin like old smoke, something that doesn't go away even if you scrub hard enough. It's not peaceful, it's heavy. It presses against your chest at night and watches you in the morning when all the world is waking and you're still wondering if you have a reason to get up. My name is Margot Ellery. You've probably never heard of me, though once upon a time, my name made it to the walls of decent galleries in Portland and New York. Watercolors, mostly. Landscapes people said were soothing. That word again, soothing. As if that was the highest form of praise a woman could hope for. I painted trees, rivers, mist, because they didn't argue back, because they didn't ask me why I stopped painting people. But then, someone did a review, published in the Vanguard Review, 3 pages, sharp as glass. It called my work nostalgic drivel, and a woman's yearning masquerading as modern technique. I read it once, then I read it again. And by the 3rd time, my hands were shaking too much to hold the mug. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay still, staring at the wooden beams above me, hearing nothing but my own heart and the creak of regret. Because he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. I hadn't created anything true in years. I'd been hiding behind brushstrokes and pine trees, behind layers of polite color and safe composition. And somehow, a 20-something critic had seen right through me, so I wrote him a letter, not a rebuttal, not a thank you, an invitation. I didn't know what I was hoping for when I slid that envelope into the rusted slot at the Ashland post office. Forgiveness, validation, maybe just the sound of someone else's voice in my house. It's sad, isn't it, how far we're willing to go just to not eat dinner alone. I waited 2 weeks. Then yesterday, I found his reply buried beneath junk mail and a flyer about chimney cleaning. I accept your invitation, it read. I'll be there Tuesday, 7:00 p.m. I didn't even finish the sentence before glancing up at the calendar. Tuesday, today. I had less than an hour to prepare. The place was a mess. So was I. And yet, when the knock came sharp and sudden, like a punctuation mark, I just stood there, still holding a dripping paintbrush. Heart knocking harder than the door, I opened it. And nothing about him was what I expected. Not the age, not the eyes, not the way he looked at me. As if he hadn't expected me either. I used to believe silence was power, that a woman who didn't beg to be seen was somehow more dignified. But years of quiet have done nothing but echo. My mornings always begin the same way. A faint groan in my knees, the cold bite of Oregon air against old window panes. The cabin creaks like it's remembering too much. I shuffle toward the kettle, barefoot, feeling the rough wood beneath me. I don't bother with mirrors. Haven't in years. The newsprint sits on my kitchen table, folded open like an accusation. I told myself I wouldn't read it again, but I do. Every line, every razor-edged syllable. Julian Ward. The name buzzes in my mind like a mosquito I can't quite swat. A stagnant palette, an artist clinging to relevance with hands too wrinkled to grasp it. He doesn't even try to veil the cruelty. And that's what stings most, not the words, but how much truth they carry. I stare out the window for a while, watching mist crawl over the evergreens. It should calm me, it used to. But now, it just feels like more hiding. That night, I don't eat. I take my brush and slam it against a blank sheet. Once, twice, until the water bleeds across the paper in violent streaks. It doesn't look like anything, but it feels like everything. When I finally collapse into bed, exhausted and hollow, I don't dream. I just wait for morning to pull me back into this version of living I've built for myself. The next day, I write him, "Dear Mr. Ward," it begins. But I scratch that out, Julian. Better, less formal, more honest. I invite him to visit, to see the studio, the work me, the woman behind the paintings. He gutted with a few dozen words. I don't expect a reply. Part of me writes it just to prove I'm still capable of action, still capable of caring. But then the letter comes. I accept. I don't expect to change my review, but I'm curious. Tuesday, 7 p.m. I read it 3 times. I read it while standing, while sitting, while pacing. And then I look up at the calendar. Tuesday, today. The next hour is chaos. I sweep dried leaves off the porch, hide paint-streaked coffee mugs under the sink, toss newspapers into closets that are already too full. I glance down at myself, worn jeans, faded sweater, my hair tied up with an old shoelace. No time to change, no time to pretend. So I wait. At exactly 6:59, there's a knock. Sharp, clear, certain. I hesitate, hand hovering over the doorknob. Then, with a breath I didn't realize I was holding, I open it. And there he is, Julian Ward, nothing like I imagined. Not the bitter old critic with spectacles and a permanent sneer. He's young, maybe late 20s, tall, yes, but more lanky than intimidating, hair falling messily over his forehead, like he forgot to care. Glasses too large for his face, a coat too nice for this part of Oregon. His eyes take me in. All of me, the mess, the age, the paint-stained fingers. There's a flicker of something, surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. I study him back. This is the man who tore me down with a paragraph, who reduced decades of work to footnotes. He extends a hand. Julian Ward, charmed, I'm sure. The voice carries that practiced tone, dry, slightly amused. But it doesn't fool me. I can hear the flutter underneath, the uncertainty. Margot Ellery, I reply, gripping his hand firmly. You're younger than I thought. He flinches, just slightly. Well, you're a lot. He trails off, catches himself, looks away. I could tear him apart for it, but I don't. I know that look, that reaching for words and failing. Instead, I let my grip linger a moment too long, just enough to unsettle him. Then I step back and motion for him to come inside. The fire's already going in the hearth. The smell of pine wood and tea leaves hangs in the air. He steps over the threshold like he's entering a cathedral. And then he sees it, the painting, the one born out of fury, still propped against a chair I forgot to move. "This one isn't part of the exhibition?" he asks, walking closer. "No," I say quickly. "It's not finished." He crouches down, studying it. Bright streaks of crimson and indigo clash across the page. It's raw, brutal, not meant for eyes outside my own. But he says, "It's extraordinary." And when he looks up at me, I can't tell if he means the painting or something else. Julian stands there, still crouched in front of the painting like he's waiting for it to tell him a secret. I cross my arms, feeling the weight of his silence stretch out far too long. "You think it's good," I say, flat. He doesn't even glance up. "It's not polite or measured. It's real. It's the kind of piece that doesn't care what anyone thinks of it." I scoff. "Maybe that's because I didn't paint it for anyone." "That's exactly why it works." There's a pause, not awkward, just full. He stands up slowly and brushes his hands on his coat like he's dusted off something important. "I didn't come here expecting to be impressed," he says, voice quieter now. "I thought this would be some forced civility, maybe a half-hearted attempt to save face." "Isn't it?" He smiles, just faintly. "If it were, you wouldn't have let that one sit out." I don't answer. Instead, I walk past him into the living room and turn on the fireplace a notch higher. The flames respond like a breath being drawn in. He follows me, carrying the echo of our conversation like an extra presence between us. "I made tea," I offer, already moving toward the kitchen counter. "Ginger helps with digestion and nerves." Julian chuckles behind me. "Are we nervous?" I shoot him a look over my shoulder. "You tell me. You're the one who came to a stranger's cabin in the woods to see if I misjudged a woman I publicly insulted. Not my proudest mission, I admit." I pour the tea. The steam curls upward like something delicate escaping. We sit across from each other, two mismatched mugs between us, a coffee table stained with years of use, and a silence that feels more deliberate this time. He takes a sip, then places the cup down with care. "I was a fan of your earlier work, you know. That piece from 2003, The Stillness Between Pines. It was comforting." My stomach knots. I know that tone. It's the one critics use when they're about to bury you with a velvet glove. Comforting, I repeat. Familiar, safe. "Is that what you think I am, Julian?" He meets my eyes. This time, he doesn't flinch. "That how most people describe your older collections?" I smile tightly. "That's the problem, is it?" He says nothing, so I go on. "Everyone wants women like me to stay gentle, to paint with soft strokes, whisper instead of shout. We're supposed to age into quiet dignity and let the new voices take over. But what if I'm not done speaking? You think I wrote that review because you're a woman. I think you wrote it because I stopped painting what you expected. And I think that scared you more than it should have." Julian leans back slightly, crossing his arms. "I wrote it because I could tell you were holding something back, and I didn't know why." "I was holding back everything," I whisper. He's silent. The fire crackles softly beside us. My tea has gone cold, but I don't move to reheat it. You know, I say, you're not what I expected either. How so? I thought you'd be colder, sharper, less alive. He smirks. Well, I did rehearse my contempt in the mirror this morning, but the drive up here was longer than I thought. We both laugh. It's brief but real, the sound of two people letting go of their swords, if only for a moment. Tell me something, I ask, tilting my head. Why criticism? Why not create something yourself? His eyes go soft, then far away. My mother was a pianist, he says. Brilliant, fragile. She used to tell me that creation demands sacrifice, and she had nothing left to give. The sentence hovers between us like a piece of dust in warm light. I think I became a critic because I was afraid she was right. It's easier to point than to build. I used to think building was enough, but now, he looks up. We're both a little undone now, a little cracked at the edges. You invited me here to change my mind. I invited you here because I needed to remember why I ever let people see me. Julian studies me for a long moment. You've done more than that. Outside, the sky is turning a shade deeper. The last light slips behind the trees like someone leaving the room quietly. Neither of us stands. Neither of us wants to be the first to break it. So we sit, two figures across a fading fire, and something unspoken warming the space between. It's strange how quickly silence can shift. One moment, it's a barrier, the next, it's a kind of glue. Julian hasn't said anything in nearly 5 minutes, but he hasn't moved either. Just sits there, watching the fire with that same quiet intensity he turned on my painting earlier. I wonder what he sees when he looks at flames. I wonder if it's anything like what I see when I look at him. Potential, risk, something I didn't plan for. I meant what I said earlier, he murmurs, finally, about that piece. I nod slowly. I know. I think you knew it too, before I said anything. That catches me off guard. I glance at him. His face is relaxed, but his eyes, those eyes are digging, searching, gently, but thoroughly. I've seen that look before, not on anyone so young, not pointed at me. I didn't expect you to be so. He trails off, eyes moving from my hair to my paint-splotched sleeves, then away again. Present. I let out a dry chuckle. You thought I'd be ancient and bitter. He grins, boyish and sheepish all at once. Maybe just closed off. I was, I say. I am until you started talking like you actually saw something. He sits forward now, elbows on knees. I didn't see you before, not really. I saw the idea of you. And what do you see now? There's a long pause, too long. I regret asking. But then he says it. Someone who's still burning. The words hang there, warm and bare. I shift in my seat, feeling heat creep up the back of my neck. Not from the fire, not exactly. I want to paint you, I say. He blinks, surprised. What? Serious, I reply, already standing. You said it yourself. You're the one always pointing. Maybe it's time someone turned the gaze back on you. He hesitates, then sets down his cup and follows me into the adjoining room, my studio. It's cluttered, chaotic, alive. Brushes scattered like dropped matchsticks, layers of forgotten work lean against the walls. shadows of past selves. The smell of linseed oil and raw canvas clings to everything like a second skin. Sit, I say, pointing to a worn armchair under the skylight. There, Julian obeys, his movements suddenly cautious. I can tell he's unsure whether this is part of the exhibition or something else entirely. I've never posed before, he admits. Good, I say, dipping the brush in water. No bad habits to unlearn. I start with the frame, loose outlines, nothing too defined. I don't need precision yet. I need to feel the shape of him, how he fits in this space, in this strange moment. You're squinting, I murmur. He laughs nervously. I'm trying not to fidget. Don't try, just be. A pause. Then softer. Why me? I don't answer right away. I move closer instead, circling him slowly, watching how the firelight paints lines across his throat, his hands. Because you saw me. And now I want to see you. He says nothing. I reach out, not touching him, not yet, but letting the air between us change, thicken. May I ask, eyes on his sleeve. He nods. I gently lift his arm, feeling the weight, the subtle tension in his muscles. He's leaner than I imagined. Strength hidden beneath all that analysis. Relax, I whisper. He exhales. I feel it, not just on my skin, but deeper, like something shifting in the room itself. As I sketch, the lines become slower, more deliberate. I catch myself studying too long, pausing in places that mean more than paint. He watches me watch him. Neither of us says much. But something grows, not loud, not rushed, just inevitable. At one point, he leans forward, just slightly. His eyes meet mine and hold. My brush hovers above the canvas. Between us, the world feels fragile, like glass stretched thin between breath and decision. I think I understand now, he says quietly, why you invited me. I lower the brush, step closer. And I think I needed it too. No music plays, no grand speech, just the soft crackle of the fire, and the weight of two people realizing they might not be so alone after all. I reach for the glasses on his face. He doesn't stop me when I take them off. His features shift, softer, younger, realer. I see him. And he sees me seeing him. We're not critic and artist anymore. Just two humans, close enough to hear each other's breathing. He doesn't ask permission. I don't need to give it. We lean in at the same time. And when we meet in the middle, it isn't about proving anything. It's about finally letting something in. I wake before the light does. The cabin is still, the kind of quiet that feels unnatural, like the world is waiting to exhale. For a moment, I forget why I feel different. Then the memory returns, warmth, laughter, the strange peace of not being alone. And Julian. I turn toward the other side of the bed, empty. No indentation on the pillow, no coat draped on the chair, no sound from the other room. He's gone. I sit up slowly. Every movement feels deliberate, like I'm stepping through a dream that's trying to break apart. I check the studio, the kettle, the porch, nothing. I want to believe he had to leave early, that maybe something urgent pulled him away. But something else, a quieter voice in the back of my mind, says otherwise. On the easel, the portrait still sits, half-formed, lines unfinished, shadows waiting for their light, just like the night before. Only now, it feels heavier, like it knows it's been abandoned. I stare at it for a long time. My brush still rests beside it, dried pigment clinging to its edge. The silence now isn't peace, it's echo. He didn't leave a note, not a word. I want to be furious. I want to slam a drawer or break a plate or curse myself for opening the door in the first place. But I do none of those things. Instead, I stand there, letting the quiet press into me. 2 paintings are missing, the unfinished portrait and the one born of rage. I didn't notice it until now. But the space it left behind is so obvious, an absence screaming louder than any sound. At first, I tell myself it's a misunderstanding. Maybe he thought I gave them to him. Maybe he needed them for something. Maybe this is still part of the conversation we started. But I know better. I feel it in the base of my spine, in the hollow behind my ribs. I was a moment, a curiosity, a flicker in someone else's story. I returned to the living room, collapse into the armchair he sat in. I press my palms to my face and sit like that for hours, time slipping past me like mist. No one calls, no one knocks. The day turns gray and cold. I try to paint. I try to distract myself with colors and shapes. But everything I put down looks artificial, forced. The kind of work he'd once accused me of. And worse, part of me wonders if he was right all along. A week passes. The anger comes slow. At first, it's just a tightness in my chest, then a throb in the jaw. Then one morning, I knock over a jar of brushes and scream into the empty air. I accuse him of everything, of manipulation, of cowardice, of stealing pieces of me he had no right to touch. But when the rage cools, what's left is something softer, sadder. I miss him, not just his presence. I miss the way it felt to be seen then. The package arrives, brown paper, no return address. I open it with hands that don't know what to expect inside. I find a magazine, thick, glossy, familiar, Artform Quarterly. My breath catches before I even flip the cover. It's there. Page 12, full spread. A headline in clean serif font. Review and reviewer. A dialogue in paint. By Julian Ward. My heart climbs into my throat. There they are, my 2 missing works, photographed with care, framed not as theft, but as thesis. He writes of conflict, of transformation, of how critique, when met with honesty, can become communion. He writes about me, not the artist, the person, a woman who dared to turn the mirror around. I read every word slowly, then again, then again. At the bottom of the page, just above the publishing credits, there's a handwritten line, tiny, slanted, a 10-digit number. And next to it, a small, hand-drawn, smiley face, no signature, no explanation, just possibility. I close the magazine. And for the first time all week, I smile back. It's been 3 days since the magazine arrived. I haven't called the number, haven't even saved it to my phone. But I know it by heart. It hums in the back of my mind while I sleep. It echoes under every brushstroke I try to lay down. I keep the magazine on the coffee table, open to the article. I tell myself it's just to remind me that the work meant something, that it wasn't all in my head. But the truth is, I'm waiting for something more. Another letter, a message, a knock. Nothing comes. So I do the only thing I know how to do. I paint. But this time, not for him, not for critics, not for anyone. I paint for the ache in my chest, for the nights I watched the fire burn down to nothing, for the girl I used to be before the world made me quiet. I dig out old canvases, sand them down, reuse what I can. There's something poetic about giving forgotten things new form. The studio becomes a mess again, glorious, alive, brushes in teacups, rags on the floor, windows fogged with breath and color. Each morning I rise with purpose. Each night I collapse with paint in my hair and beneath my nails. I begin to forget the number. And then one morning, I don't think of it at all that same day. I walk into town, the first time in weeks. I stop by the local cafe. People glance up when I enter, some surprised, some curious. No one speaks. But I'm not here for them. I rent out the back room, small, unassuming, walls cracked, and floors uneven. But it has windows, light. And I hang the paintings, not all of them, just the new ones, just the ones that came from the silence. I don't invite press, no fanfare, just a handwritten sign taped to the glass. New work 1 week only. By the end of the second day, a handful of visitors have trickled through, locals, students, the curious, and the kind. No critics, good. I want this to be mine again. That night, as I lock up, I see it taped to the door, folded once, no name inside, a note. You didn't call, but you spoke louder than ever. Below that, a postscript. Will you be there Friday? No signature, but I know. And for the first time in a long while, I feel no fear in waiting. I don't rush home. I don't prepare anything. I just let the art speak. Friday comes. The room is quieter than usual. A drizzle taps softly against the windows. I stand alone, arms crossed, watching the light shift across a canvas titled Resurface. Then, the door opens, footsteps. Hesitant, I turn. And there he is, Julian, damp hair, jacket unbuttoned. A breath caught in his throat. He looks around slowly, takes it all in, no words, not yet. He walks up to Resurface, studies it. Then he turns to me. It's you, he says, almost in awe, all of it finally. I nod. It always was, I whisper. He swallows hard. I didn't know how to ask if I could come back. You just did. And that's enough. He walks closer. Slower this time. Not like someone returning to fix something, but like someone who knows it was never broken to begin with. Julian doesn't say much that night. He stays close, but not too close, letting the space between us hold its own shape. Sometimes, silence is safer than speech. We walk together back to the cabin. It's colder now. October has settled in. The trees are turning. The world smells of damp earth and old firewood. When we step inside, everything feels smaller somehow. Or maybe it's just more full. He shrugs off his coat, drapes it over the chair without asking, like he remembers where things belong. I make tea again. Same ginger blend, same chipped mugs. He takes his cup with both hands, as if grounding himself. I watch the steam rise and swirl. It's strange how familiar it all feels. I thought UD changed your number, he says softly. I didn't. I thought you were angry. I was. He nods, doesn't defend himself, just sips. We sit near the fire, the same place as before, but nothing feels repeated. His gaze lingers on the stack of new canvases near the wall. You've been working. I had to. Because of me. No, because of me. That seems to matter. I see it in the way his shoulders drop. Just a little. He looks different in firelight. Less polished, less certain, more honest. I never meant to disappear, he says after a long moment. I know, but I didn't know what I meant to you, not really. You meant something, I reply. But that doesn't mean you get to choose how much. His jaw tenses, then softens. Fair. We fall into quiet again. I reach for a blanket and toss it over my lap. He shifts slightly, closer, but not intruding. Then he says it. I missed you. It's not dramatic, not desperate. Just real. I glance at him, at the way he holds his mug, like it's the only solid thing in the room. I missed being seen, I whisper. His eyes find mine. You still are. The words settle around us like dust, soft and unavoidable. I don't know who leans first. Maybe we both do. But when we meet in the middle, it's nothing like the first time. This isn't curiosity. It's recognition. There are no grand gestures, no cinematic heat, only the slow unfolding of breath against breath, the steady rhythm of something unspoken being heard. His presence fills the space without asking for it. My hands move without instruction, finding warmth, memory, the soft pulse of shared gravity. It's a quiet collision, a tender storm, no sparks, just heat, not fire, but embers that never stopped glowing. And in that stillness, we become something we hadn't allowed ourselves to be, not artist and critic, not woman and man, but two people, resting in the truth that they didn't need to be perfecto, be needed. Morning comes soft and slow. The fire is out. The sky is pale with early light. And the quiet, for once, feels earned. I sit on the edge of the bed, wrapped in the blanket he pulled over us sometime in the night. My fingers trace the folded fabric. It still holds the warmth of something unspoken, still blooming. Julian is in the kitchen, barefoot, hair wild, boiling water like he belongs here. I watch him from the doorway. He catches my eye and smiles. Hope you don't mind, he says, lifting the kettle. Thought I'd try making the tea this time. I nod, lips curved. You'll need the one with the yellow label. Everything else is just colored disappointment. He chuckles. Yellow label, got it. We eat in silence, toast, tea. A handful of blackberries I'd picked the day before and forgot about in the fridge. There's something sacred in the ordinary now, like we're tending to something fragile, still forming. After breakfast, I step into the studio. Julian follows. The light pours through the skylight, like gold dust. The portrait is still where I left it, unfinished, but no longer angry, just waiting. He walks to it, looks at it differently now, not as a critic, not even as a subject, as someone who understands the intimacy of being seen. "You should finish it," he says. "Maybe I will." I reach for a brush, but don't dip it in paint. Not yet. Instead, I turn to him. "What now?" He thinks for a moment. "Now we see if this can exist outside the frame." His answer isn't perfect, but it's honest. We spend the day together, no plans, no promises. He helps me stack firewood. I show him the overgrown trail behind the cabin. He tells me about his father, a distant man who taught him to value words more than feelings. I tell him about the first painting I ever sold and how I cried in the car afterward, not from joy, but from grief. In the evening, we sit on the porch, wrapped in one blanket, watching the sky go violet. He rests his head on my shoulder. I let him stay there. Neither of us speaks. We don't need to that night. He sleeps in the guest room, not out of distance, but out of respect for whatever this is becoming. And in the stillness before sleep takes me, I whisper one thing into the dark: "Please stay." I don't know if he hears it, but I think he does. We fall into a rhythm, not the kind you can schedule or define, just a quiet, breathing pace that makes room for both of us. Julian doesn't move in. He visits, stays over some nights, leaves others, sometimes for days at a time. I never ask where he goes. He never tells me. It's not cold. It's respectful. He knows I need space the same way I know he needs distance to understand things. When he's here, the cabin hums differently. He reads while I paint, or watches the fire while I cook. Sometimes we speak, other times it's just shared air and passing glances. I find comfort in the absence of urgency. I begin working on a new piece, not from anger, not from longing, from clarity. It's large, the biggest I've done in years. A canvas that eats the wall and demands light. At first, I don't know what it is. It starts as movement, swaths of color that drift and collide. Then it becomes something else, not abstract, not literal, a conversation, one between silence and expression, between being witnessed and finally choosing to stand still. I call it undone. Julian sees it halfway through. He doesn't ask what it means, just nods, like he already knows. One evening, he arrives with a cardboard tube in hand. He sets it on the table gently, like it might bite. "I brought something," he says. I raise an eyebrow. "Is it dangerous?" "Only to your ego." I unroll it slowly. It's a print of a painting, but not mine. It's the portrait, the one I started of him, finished, but not by me. I study it carefully. He's captured the light I left out, softened the angles without losing their truth. He's added the background I hadn't imagined, yet warm hues, diffused edges, a sense of depth that pulls you in instead of pushing you away. It isn't polished. It's tender. He doesn't speak, just waits. "This is yours?" I ask, quietly. He nods once. "I wanted to see what it felt like," he says, "to be on the other side." I swallow hard, my throat is too tight for words. He touches the edge of the canvas. I didn't mean to finish it. I just couldn't leave it like that, half-spoken. I touch his hand without thinking, not as a gesture, as a grounding. There's something unbearably beautiful about being understood without translation. The next morning, I bring Undone into town. There's a pop-up gallery opening in a converted greenhouse just off Main Street. I don't send invitations. I simply hang the piece alone. No label, no price tag. It stands tall and quiet under the glass ceiling, letting the sun complete it. Julian arrives just before closing. He stands in front of the painting for a long time. Then he turns to me and says, "You've stopped explaining." I nod, because I'm finally saying something. He looks back at the canvas, then at me. "You're not undone," he says. "You're beginning again." And maybe that's exactly what I needed to hear. The show ends without applause, no press, no critics, just a few visitors, some strangers, and the quiet footprints of those who came and left with something they couldn't quite name. That's how I wanted it, no noise, no spectacle, just truth, framed and still breathing. On the last day, I take Undone down myself, wrap it in soft cloth, place it gently in the back of my car. I don't know yet where it belongs, but I know it isn't finished traveling. Julian meets me at the cabin that evening. No words, just a hand on the small of my back as I climb the porch steps, and a look that says, "I saw it." We sit outside, wrapped in separate blankets, but sharing the same silence. Above us, the sky spills stars like it's been waiting all day to let them out. "Do you ever think about legacy?" he asks. I take a long breath. Less now than I used to. Why? Because it's rooted in being remembered. And lately, I've found more joy in being real. He nods, doesn't argue, just sips his tea and lets the night stretch between us later. When we move inside, I show him the new sketch I've been working on. It's not of him. It's of a woman, older, yes, but weightless somehow, mid-movement, mid-thought, mid-life. He studies it carefully. His thumb brushes the edge of the page like it might hum back. "She's not finished," I say. "She doesn't need to be," he replies. The next few weeks pass like breath. Some days he's here, some days he's not. But there's no fear in the coming and going anymore. No questions masked as conversations. No bruised expectations. I paint more, he writes less. He doesn't say it out loud. But I think watching me create has shifted something in him, like he's learning to live in the spaces between words. One afternoon, I find a slip of paper tucked into one of my journals. It's not signed, just a line. "You don't need my review anymore. You've become your own." I keep it in the drawer beside my bed, not as proof, but as presence, because some truths don't fade, they settle like warmth in floorboards, like light that finds its way in, even when the door is closed. The first snow comes early that year, not heavy, just enough to dust the world in quiet. The kind of snow that doesn't scream winter, but whispers change. I watch it fall from the studio window, brush in hand, tea cooling beside me. There's a new piece on the easel. No title yet, no shape I can name. But I'm not in a hurry to define it. Some things grow better when left unnamed for a while. Julian arrives just after dusk. No coat this time, just a thick sweater, boots caked in snow, and that look on his face like he's carried something all day and is finally ready to set it down. He doesn't speak right away. Instead, he walks to the fireplace, lights it with the ease of someone who knows the rhythm of this house. Then he turns to me. I have something for you. I raise an eyebrow. If it's another print, I might cry. He smiles. But there's something behind it, earnest, steady from his bag. He pulls out a wooden box, handmade, worn edges. No latch, he opens it slowly and lifts out a small framed piece, not a painting, a letter, his handwriting, written on thick paper, centered and deliberate, not for publication, not for review. For me, he places it on the table, then steps back. I wrote it the day after you first showed me undone. I wasn't ready to give it to you. I am now. I don't reach for it, not yet. Instead, I walk to him. You've changed, I say. I know. Because of me. No, he says. Because of us. We stand there, quiet, the fire crackling, snow tapping the windows. He looks at me, not through me, not around me, with me. I want to stay, he says softly. I nod once, not as permission, as welcome. That night, we sit by the fire, reading separate books, sharing the same blanket. No declarations, no performances, just presence. In the morning, I hang the letter in the studio, beside the portrait, beside Undone. Not because I need to remember, but because I want to. Somewhere along the way, the story stopped being about redemption. It became about becoming. And in that quiet, honest becoming, we found something worth staying for.